Hey everyone, James Lynch here doing a quick reaction video to the news that the Michael Johnson-Alexander Hernandez fight for UFC 324 is off the card. This according to the UFC. Nolan King's got a couple tweets here we'll check out here. So you can see there it says Michael Johnson, Alex Hernandez is off tonight's card. The UFC did not give a reason for the cancellation. Usually they say something, even if it's vague. Perhaps we'll get some more info soon, but something to keep an eye on. And this comes from Dave Mason's tweet. Dave Mason works in the for Bet Online, and he reads, we'll read sort of the quote here. He says that due to some irregular betting patterns, we will be keeping limits lower than usual in tonight's Michael Johnson-Alexander Hernandez bout. Additionally, there will not be props on this fight. Important, this is a standard measure, not a judgment on the fight's integrity, possible injury, etc. However, to protect both bettors and the house, we err on the side of caution. If you choose to bet this fight, all bets have action. Thanks. So this was posted before the fight was canceled. Again, we have not got a reason from the UFC why this is off. But certainly very interesting. And there was some line movement coming in on Michael Johnson. So again, nothing's, officially, confirmed other than the fight is off. But if you check out Logan, who runs MMA Orbit, he says big money is poured in on Michael Johnson as the underdog against Alex Hernandez over the past few hours. The line is now a pick'em after Hernandez opened as a -300 favorite, one to keep an eye on at weigh-ins. This was from yesterday, so there was some money coming in yesterday on this fight. And again, this, just to tie things back to the whole situation with Isaac Dolgarian, the reason that was different than other line movements that we've had before is that obviously a bunch of money came in on the opponent of Isaac Dolgarian. He goes in there, has the worst performance of his career. People are aware that there's line movement, all this stuff. This could have been a similar case here. If Alex Hernandez goes out there and has a terrible performance and ended up fighting, and there was a bunch of money coming in on Michael Johnson, that would look pretty suspicious, right? So that's something to sort of keep in mind here when you're looking at this potentially being a bad situation. So I think the UFC did the right thing here. I mean, this is the first Paramount card of the Paramount era. Obviously, they're very, they want to have an event that, doesn't have any issues or anything like that. They just had the whole fiasco yesterday with the Cameron Smotherman weigh-in. They rightfully decided not to put that fight on as well. But this looks like a similar buildup to what happened with Isaac Dolgarian. And of course, I've done plenty of videos on this. Dolgarian is still under investigation right now. He was released from the UFC. He was kicked out of his gym. The same could have happened here for Alex Hernandez if the fight didn't go well. I just don't see the reason to even put any sort of, attention on a fight like this. So I'm glad the UFC made this call of, putting the card off. We'll see if they acknowledge it on the broadcast, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll mention, I don't even know what they're going to say, but they're obviously not going to tie it into any sort of irregular betting because the UFC doesn't want this. Again, we had the whole situation with James Krause years ago where you saw, obviously Krause get blackballed from the industry, Derek Minner, everyone else. You don't want to have this even as a remote thing going on for your first Paramount event, right? They just signed this new deal. It's a part of a new era. They do not want to even deal with this. I do wonder if this was a bigger fight, like if this was a meaningful fight, maybe not a title fight, but like, let's say this was Sean O'Malley and Song Yadong and we had this, movement going on. Would the UFC have made that same decision? Because that's a more important fight. Let's be honest here. Alex Hernandez, Michael Johnson doesn't really have a huge impact on the lightweight division. So while it's great that the UFC did cancel that fight, it's also a fight that doesn't have a lot of implications. So I do wonder if that was factored in, that, hey, they don't think much of this fight, but either way, I got to give the UFC credit. Listen, I criticize the UFC a lot on this channel. I give them full marks here for pulling this fight, as I'm going to give them full marks for pulling the Cameron Smotherman fight yesterday too. I mean, everyone watching that, it was everywhere. I mean, as you can see right now, I'm on the road in Plymouth. I saw this all over the TVs last night, the Cameron Smotherman thing. You do not want to have a similar thing going on if Alex Hernandez went out there and had a bad performance here. So looks like the UFC is trying to get ahead of this. We're seeing a lot of comments coming through here from people keeping, we've got the GTA meme here. Oh, shit, we go again. Because again, they're referring to the Dolgarian situation. Interestingly enough, Alex Hernandez, Isaac Dolgarian used to train together. Doesn't matter, but just something interesting to add to this whole thing. Someone saying, thanks, Dave, for your due diligence. Now people are chiming in about the fight being canceled. So, James Krause gif, fight canceled, greedy clowns. Yeah, I mean, again, there's no evidence of fight fixing or anything like that. Here's the actual statement. Let's read that. Probably should have started with this, but I went with the big guns there. The lightweight bout between Michael Johnson and Alex Hernandez has been canceled from tonight's event due to an injury with Kayla Harrison. That championship bout against You're just announcing that now that Kayla Harrison's off the card? No, I'm joking. So yeah, they don't say anything about why the fight was pulled. But, and just to be clear, in this video, I think I've already mentioned this, but I'm not accusing Alex Hernandez or anyone of any sort of shady stuff going on. But the facts are the facts. There was line movement. I mean, there's been line movement on fights before, right? We've seen it before. And then the fight's just whatever, and it happens. But again, had this fight gone on, I'm just talking hypothetically, if this fight had continued through and Alex Hernandez gets finished in like 30 seconds, then yeah, that's pretty suspicious considering the line movement. That's sort of it's got to be that perfect storm of weird line movement and, fight ends up in a weird way. I mean, Alex Hernandez has obviously lost before, and Michael Johnson, I think, is capable of beating Alex Hernandez. I don't think that's crazy, but it's the line movement you always have to keep an eye on because, of course, we've had weird fights before, weird finishes, ref stoppages, controversial decisions, all that stuff. I remember when the Bulgarian thing happened, people were like, we got to go look back at all this stuff. No, you really don't. Unless there was some crazy line movement and the fight ended up in a weird way, then yeah, we could look at that. But, just because someone loses or there's a fight that's weird, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the same thing here. So I think you're going to see the UFC be pretty strict on this stuff. But again, Dave Mason, who I just mentioned there, someone that is very much, it's sort of an authority when it comes to, I mean, we'll read his title here. I've talked, we had Dave on our betting podcast. Dave is, he's the man behind Bet Online. If he's flagging this and realizing this is an issue, then it is pretty serious. And I'm sure, again, with what happened with Bulgarian and the fact that UFC is sort of hovering around this stuff, they probably got tipped off about this even yesterday when people like Logan found out that the betting odds were off and all that. So we'll see what happens out of this. I'm really curious to see, like, the one thing I want to know, and that to me, that should be the first guest on Ariel Helwani's show on Monday, is Alex Hernandez explaining to Ariel Helwani why the fight was pulled, or we got to get some sort of explanation. I wonder if, I'm sure Dana's going to get asked about it tonight, but again, this is the last thing the UFC wants, is to deal with any sort of, issues on this first card. Again, this is the start of the Paramount era. We just had the Bulgarian situation a couple months ago. They want to avoid this at all costs. So I think the big thing here is that the UFC just wants to rid itself of this. But now this is where it lies on the fighters themselves to kind of explain what happens. And again, by the looks of it, it was something on Hernandez's end, because why is Michael Johnson getting so much money going his way, right? So I know personally, I did hear some stuff around this fight that maybe there was a possible injury with Alex Hernandez, but that was leading up to the fight. But at that point, I had not seen any line movement or anything sort of nuts, so I didn't even make this into a thing. It was just something I made note of. And I know even Clint, our buddy Diehard MMA, he did a video on this the other day talking about the line movement, and turns out he was right, because the UFC ended up pulling the fight. So trust me, if they're pulling the fight, then there's obviously some stuff going on there that we certainly need to keep an eye on as well. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments about this whole situation. Did the UFC make the right call? What do you think happened? Let me know. Can only do the one screen thing here as I'm on the road still for, I'm going to be working the Cage Titans 75 card tonight. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think of this whole situation. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.